Welcome. In this video I'm going to show you the meaning of the different columns in the variable view in SPSS. To illustrate, we'll go of course to the variable view and I'll be using two examples. I usually start with the label or with the name, but to make it clear I'll start with the label today. And at the label you can enter either the full question, so for example, what is your gender? Or, and I'll be using the second variable for that, you can just write down a description. Perhaps the question was, do you have any other comments? And then a description could be other comments. Now at the label you can use spaces and you can start with a number, etc, etc, but the name should be shorter, as short as possible, but still hopefully a little bit clear, but cannot start with a number and cannot contain any spaces or special characters such as a percentage sign. So for what is your gender, gender might be an appropriate name, and for comments, comment might be an appropriate name. At type you indicate what will actually be typed in. I'll be using 0 for male and 1 for female, so actually I will be typing in numbers, so numeric is fine. However, the comment is actually text, so I'll need to adjust that. And there are a few different options. The ones I usually use are either numeric, date and string for text. If you click on string, it will ask how many characters. So you'll have to give an estimate of how many characters people will actually use, including spaces, etc, when they write down a comment. I'm going to set it at 100, that's just a wild guess. You can always increase it later. Click on OK, and you'll notice that the width has been changed to 100. So the width indicates how many characters can actually be entered. Note that this only applies to variables that are set to string. For a numeric one, even though the width might indicate that there are only 8 digits that can be entered, you can actually enter a lot more if you want to. So the width has actually no consequences at a numeric variable. Number of decimals is the number of decimals that will be shown. So you can still enter more than 2 decimals at the moment, but they simply won't show when you go to the data view. For gender I'll be using 0 for male and 1 for female, so I don't need any decimals. As mentioned before, label is the longer description of the name, and at values you can enter the possible variations. So in this case for gender I said I'll be using 0 for male, and click on add, and I'll be using 1 for female. If you wanted to use M and F for male and female, you need to set the type to string, because otherwise it's not a number. You can also enter, if you want here, already a description for the missing value. I'll be using 99 in case somebody didn't answer the question. So, did not answer. Click on add and click on OK. Since I have no clue what people will actually write down at the comments, I'll leave these at none. Missing is what you will enter as a researcher in case somebody didn't answer the question or skipped it. It's currently already at the values, but I need to indicate that that 99 is not a male or female or has anything to do with the gender. So I'll click on the missing values. Currently it's set to no missing values. I'll adjust it to discrete because I'm using 99. You can also make a distinguish between, for example, did not answer or did not have to answer the question or answered it unreadable. Or even set up a range of values. So for example, if anyone enters at an age, for example an age of 150 or higher, it's probably not really true. So click on OK. The columns is how wide the column will actually show. I'll increase this one for now so it will become obvious what it does later on, to 15. A line is also where it will actually be shown in the data view. It will be aligned to the right, the left, or if you want you can choose the center. The measurement level for gender is in this case a nominal, and the role is something that is used often in modeling or actually helps with setting up model analysis within SPSS. It doesn't have many other consequences, so if you're not going to perform any advanced statistics, you can just simply leave this at input. What happened in the data view is that we now have our first two columns. Remember that I set the column for gender a little bit wider, and that's why this column is now wider than the comment. If I make it smaller again, you'll notice that in the variable view the columns is now back to 6. I'll put it at 8 because that's the default and seems to be okay. If I enter something, for example for the gender as 0, it will simply show the 0 unless I actually click on the value labels option, and you see it converts it to male. I can also click now here and select from the possible options, or I can simply type in the first letter of the option and it will auto-complete. Note that this is case sensitive, so capital M will not be recognized, only a small m or a small f. I think that's about it for all the possible columns in the variable view, and hopefully it's clear now. Perhaps it becomes even clearer if you actually start entering some variables yourself.